Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be talking with my very dear friend, Michael Bartlett, who's a master metaphysical astrologer. And he's the brilliant author of an amazing book that I've told a lot of my students about called Astrological Mavericks. And he's the one who taught me about this incredible thing about planets that are near one of the four angles. So we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris because I see that she's a maverick right here. We're going to talk about that. But the book is fantastic. You can buy it where, Michael, on Amazon, or that's
You
the
buy
best?
it on Amazon. You can get it through your local bookstore. You can order it. You can also get it as an electric Kindle or Apple version as well, because it's 1,000 pages and it's a lot to carry and lug around,
Okay.
as you
It
know.
was not, yeah, but it's a great, I mean, he's done a ton of research and it's a really interesting, fun, easy to read book. So I highly recommend it. So I wanted to pull Michael in today because I think he often has perspective that I maybe am missing. And I've been telling a lot of you that I feel that Kamala has the perfect chart to be a world leader. However, I have been concerned about what I'm seeing as her transits on election day and inauguration day. So I'm hoping Michael's going to be able to interpret it in a way that I haven't been able to figure out. Okay, so let's just start with her being a maverick right here. Can you talk about that since you're the expert on maverick planets?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, Leslie, always a treat to be connected with you, and just what a great joy. So yes, thank you as one maverick to another, because you are just so loaded in that department as
Yeah.
well. Saturn in Aquarius is very powerful, and it's funny. Um, in the process of writing the book, I ended up meeting two individuals that actually added a whole new dimension to my understanding about Saturn on Aquarius. And I would actually like to know this about Kamala. If anyone knows this, or if I ever get a chance to meet her and ask her, I'd like to know whether she'd ever done any piloting of airlines. I ended up meeting two captain pilots of commercial airlines. And when you think of Saturn, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. It's so funny because I'm just doing a little short on Aquarius today. The traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn, and the modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. And so that Saturn really understands how to, I think, really, in a sense, because Aquarius is that sign that has to do with the right human relationship. It's saying there is room for everyone at the table. We all need to be self-responsible as individuals, because of course right across the way is that Mars in Leo saying, roar, I am woman, hear me roar, which is so fantastic about her, right? But then that Saturn's like, oh yeah, you know what, I roar, but it's not just about me. That Saturn's also retrograde. It's the highest planet in her chart, being there next to that midheaven. So it's really highlighted. You can feel that in her. She's got that real kind of thou shalt not pass energy, right? The Queen Elizabeth had Saturn in Scorpio on her midheaven. Prince Harry has the same placement. These people, that Saturn is just like really like knowledgeable leaders, people who are really willing to take the authority and do the right thing on it. And so I just really love that sort of a placement. How do you perceive that energy with that Saturn there?
I find it that she's got a spiritual calling to be a world leader. And I said this when she was first picked to be the vice president. I said, whoa, I said, look at this. Wow. That right next to the arrow, the midheaven, super powerful teacher, but also internationally very well respected too, because it's in the ninth. And then, of course, this just blows me away. All the trines down here to her sun, her Mercury, her and sextile to her moon. This is what I call like a magic carpet ride of unbelievable success. So for me, this planet, this maverick thing, if there's ever been a human being designed to be a world leader, it's this chart. And this is again with astrology, without talking about personalities. We're not talking about that. We're talking about how people are designed. And when you pick people for jobs, you want to hope that they are designed for the job they're going to do. And I think she's designed for that. And one question for you, Michael, about the Maverick planet. So a lot of my students want to know, how close does it have to be considered a Maverick?
Well, what I find, through my research of doing the work that I did on the book, what I find the most potent is when the planet is in the same sign with the angle. So whether it's the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, or the midheaven, it's usually really like when it's close and in the same sign. But if, like in the case of Kamala here, where she has a 28, I mean, a 28-degree Saturn in Aquarius, and she's got a 2-degree Pisces, people are like, well, wait a minute, Michael, that's two different signs. How's that going to work? Well, just because it's right in the next sign doesn't mean that those two aren't related to one another. I like to think of it as being like you're on one side of the doorway and the other person's on the other side of the doorway. I think you and I have very similar viewpoints in this, actually, in this regard. And so it's just kind of basically reaching through. People often think of Aquarius as being the water bearer and therefore being a water sign, but it's fixed air and it's actually holding the water for the transcendental. So I like that you said that. There's almost like this, holding the foundation, to hold and framework for what it is that to come. And that grand trine in air that is, that goes over to her, not only to her ascendant at 24 degrees, as you're pointing to now in Gemini, but also her north node, which, to be honest, is in alignment with the ascendant and descendant of the Sibley chart. Or there's another chart that people like to use, it is actually Gemini rising, and then it would line up with this as well. And what you find with people who become presidents of countries, they tend to have charts that are very strongly aligned with the natal chart of the country. So this is a very significant for her to have the nodes and her ascendant descendant along these lines. I mean, she understands and is in alignment with the way the people of the United States think. And I have to admit, I keep getting goosebumps as we're talking about this, or just like waves and waves, because watching her operate, I was really kind of worried going into this election campaign with what was going on, that the Americans would slide into more of a place of being apathetic and maybe not answering. But there's been almost this awakening and this swelling of energy that is actually answering to a deeper call and an understanding. And as you said, I think her chart is one that actually really aligns with that. She is a leader. I like that you put that. I never thought about Saturn in Aquarius as a world leader, but most definitely. And to have that moon in Aries, which is just basically going to say, hey, you know what, I understand what needs to have happen. And she's in a full moon phase, right? This is a lifetime to really have these things realized for her with that. And then I love that Mercury out of sign conjunction with that sun. She's going to be pretty, but you know what? She's not afraid to get, to roll up her sleeves and get a little dirty and maybe even get a little bit nasty. I love some of the comments that she's kind of shot back at Trump and some of the others, because and she's very strong in her selfhood, right?
Yes, very strong. And what I also like about her is that she does not have um, a lot of perceived female weaknesses. She's very lucky that she's a Libra, which is a very feminine energy when you have that as your sun sign. And the Gemini rising makes her likable, social butterfly. But she's a badass because the moon in Aries and the Mars in Leo, the Mercury in Scorpio, and she's smart, but she's has no problem being a strong female, which I personally could never even consider doing the job she's doing because I'm too much of a mush. I don't want a president or vice president to be mushy.
Wow, you know what I just realized, and I completely agree with you what you're saying, and I'm sorry for kind of like went off on a whole little rabbit trail, but she actually has, it's a little bit wide in some places, but she has a grand sextile.
Let me
Look at
see.
where the 25 to 27 range.
Is
Mars, it
this
goes
it
a
right
little bit
here?
wide. Yeah, from Saturn to Moon to her ascendant, North Node to her Mars to her Sun to her South Node, lot of Fortune to her Saturn. Every 60 degrees roughly. I mean, it should be really only 2 to 3 degrees apart. But what this tells me is this really gives her an amazing, this is fire and air. I love sextiles because they feed one another. In order for fire to be out there and be big, it needs air, it needs luft, it needs to have that ability to regenerate itself. Otherwise, it peters out. And that's what happens sometimes with fire signs because they can actually kind of over-regulate, right? And in the beginning, they might really have too little oxygen coming in, not breathing and taking up a lot of space in the room and burning people. And then as they learn to adjust their flame, so to speak, and their oxygen level, they learn to regulate and warm and entice. Which, like you said, she's a hummingbird instance with that Gemini and North Node ascendant, but she's also a brilliant storyteller. Is another part of what I like about that aspect.
Yeah, and
Yes.
then the other thing she's got a huge relief. She has planets in Earth because Biden only had one Earth, Trump has zero, Hillary Clinton had zero. We've had a long history of not being grounded. And this woman has these three very powerful. This is so potent right here. And that's a golden aspect right there, Venus next to Pluto. So she's intense. I mean, this is a woman who I would find her quite intimidating. I heard somebody told me a personal story about her where they were meeting her to get some career advice. And this was when she was in California as, I guess, attorney general. And this woman was studying to do something in the legal government world. Kamala came in, sat her down, and for 1 hour told her exactly what she needed to do, how she was going to succeed in the world. It was another Black woman. And then she left. So it's all business, to the point, get it done. And that is what I think she is. And I think if you're dealing with male strong men in the world, if you're not like that, you're going to get run over. She's not going to get run over.
No, she's not. She's really not. She's got a lot of, I mean, especially when you look over here at her grid chart. I mean, look at all this wonderful blue, the
Yes.
sextiles and the trines that give really wonderful support. She has just enough, those squares, the Saturn Jupiter square, the Jupiter Saturn square, the Saturn Mars opposition. I mean, she's got, what's nice is she has a lot of supportive stuff, and then she has enough tension. And in the challenging aspects, what I like to say about that is, otherwise we probably wouldn't have maybe heard of her. I mean, I think, it's like she'd be doing her stuff so well, but it's like through these challenges that she becomes, and that is such an aspect, I think, of this late degree Libra stepping into and understanding the scorpionic ways. And I think what by progression, she's probably somewhere in the Sagittarius phase, I would imagine, right?
Oh, well, you know me, I'm
Three,
not a big fan of progression. So
three. Oh,
but
she's younger than I am. Yeah, so she's in the degrees. So her son, actually, I would say by progression. So if we do 3, 33, 33, 33, 53. Yeah, I'd say she's, her son is approaching her lot of fortune and her south node and her descendants. I mean, this is really, I think, kind of like a very prophetic time for her moving forward. And I also like to say, because I know we're going to go on and look at what's going on with the election day, as well as inauguration day. But I always like to think of the framework that we're looking at the natal chart as being, with having those planets in such wonderful relationship with one another. That's like her inherent groundwork. That's her inherent operating system that she gets to work from. So when other aspects that happen by transit and progression come along and provide um, those not so fun aspects, she's got a little bit of what I would say, she's got some tools in her toolbox to face what may be coming along.
right, it's what I've been saying to people. She's driving the car, she's got her vehicle all tuned up, she's ready to go to get to her destination. But I am predicting that the weather might be lousy that day. It doesn't mean
Yes.
she's unsafe. Her car's been tuned up. She's driving the right car. But I do think we're going to look right now at election day because it doesn't look pretty. And that was the major reason I wanted to talk to you, because I just wanted to hold on a second. I'm going to move this. Here we go. By wheel.
Sure.
All right. Let's just start with looking at it from the bi-wheel, and then we'll look at the grid. The grid is where it gets a little bit more intense. But this is what a lot of astrologers that I've been listening to are talking about, that on election day, Jupiter, the planet of good fortune. So you can have like a maverick transit. Isn't that considered a maverick? Is there such a thing as a maverick transit?
I mean, to be honest, it's one of the reasons why I started looking at the maverick action of it, is because when a planet, especially the outer planets, hit an angle, it is really quite profound. But what I think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we're discussing here a little bit is that Jupiter is in that sort of pre-conscious state of Gemini, and that's really kind of the problem, right? On that day, we're looking at it being retrograde, which means it's actually going further back into it. But it's 5 degrees off her north node. It's 4 degrees off her ascendant, which means it's also in that way in opposition to those points on the other side in Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Sagittarius.
Right.
Jupiter and Venus by transit, even though Venus moves really quickly, but on that day, she's right there. They are in opposition to one another. Jupiter and Venus are the benefics. So it's funny. I think you and I were talking about it earlier a little bit with Jupiter's. You say when Jupiter squares other planets, you don't see it as being like the same as a regular square. I'd almost say there's a certain element to that here with the Jupiter Venus, because these two dance so well with one another.
Right. So if they're opposing each other, what's the big deal? Right. They're good
Right.
dancers together. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
always say
the
Santa
opposite.
Claus is nice. How mean can he be?
Well, I mean, if you watch some of the interesting new videos like that some of the kids are doing nowadays, it's very, kind of they're bringing kind of that scary aspect to it. But also when we talk about an opposition, it's the full moon, right? So it's a realization of something. So this could actually be this. When I think of Venus and Jupiter together, especially in these very social signs and mutable sign of Gemini and Sagittarius, it's like, what is our ideal? What do we want for our ideal? And then if we go up there, up to the upper part of the chart, we see that Saturn and Neptune are kind of playing a little bit of a square with us. So, and in Neptune's sign of Pisces, but not Saturn's sign. Saturn doesn't really care for being in Pisces. Jupiter doesn't really care for being in Gemini. It's a little too, um, it's like it's like someone who just won the lottery going into a jewelry store and looking at all the pretty things and just wanting to buy everything, right? Possibilities are endless. The hummingbird sees a field of flowers. Oh my God, it may go out there and accidentally overgorge, right? It might go to too many flowers. It might, all of a sudden you might see that hummingbird laying on its back with all of the pollen all over its face, right? Oh my God, no, I just can't take any more of this, but it's so good. Winnie the Pooh and his honey pot, right?
Right.
Finding the
That's what
honey
this is
pot,
like, you
that's
think? Jupiter and
there.
Gemini?
I mean, there's that element of it. And so I think if we think of this as the 12th house territory, which I like to think of anything above that, above the ascendant, being pre-conscious, I think we just have to be really careful about what our ideas of things. One of the shortcomings of the Democratic Party, I think, is this idea that, everyone wants what the Democrats want. Well, I think in the same way that some of that people are pointing out to the fact that Republicans are also kind of shoving their nose into people's business, the Democrats kind of do that as well. And I think so this thing of like, we have to find this fine line where how do people get to live their lives here in America and enjoy the bounty that is America and have the freedoms without feeling like that someone's coming in and telling them how to be living their life, whether it's on the more liberal standpoint or whether it's in the more conservative standpoint.
Right. Well said. I have a question for you
Yes,
about
please.
um, when Jupiter is transiting the ascendant, the fact that it's in the 12th and not in the first is also, to me, not as cheerful and uplifting, but am I wrong about that?
Because I mean, I like that you said Santa Claus, to be honest, because to be honest, I like look at this that Jupiter to Sat that Jupiter Sagitt Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So how bad of a how bad it's like Venus is going like, oh my gosh, the king of Sagittarius is coming home and we're gonna have a big old party. Like, but he's over there in the grand hall, he's sitting at the table on the other end from me. I maybe might not be able to have like an intimate conversation, but I'm really going to be able to observe and see, like, what is the truth? What is the reality? And do we know? I didn't look to see whether whether Jupiter has gotten up to that 24 or 25 degrees yet of Gemini. Did it make it up that far? Let me see. March. God, this year is just flying by, isn't it? We were in
Is
September.
frightening.
Jupiter got up to 21 this time. So that's as far
So it didn't get that
close to that.
that close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked to be honest, I would have liked to have maybe seen that Jupiter have already hit her ascendant.
That's what I'm
But
getting at. Like it's there. I mean, but it could be that it's delayed gratification. And now when we look at the grid, this is where I really want to get your insights into this. So let's look at the synastry grid. We'll put election day at the top and Kamala here. And this is what concerned me.
mm, I also want to say, and I think because I think from between now through the end of March when Neptune goes into Aries. Because by the way, the last time you probably also talked about this, I think you and I have talked about this personally. Last time Neptune went into Aries to the day, like the day before Neptune went into Aries, the United States declared civil war. So it makes sense that we're hearing these themes again. I think the one true connection between that time and this time is the issue of economics, the imbalance, the inequality of financial aspects is what's really going on. I think some of that can also be seen in these squares that are going on. But I think that regardless of who wins, um, if Kamala wins, Trump is going to be, playing the same game he did last time, and he's going to really be playing that this is all BS, and so that could actually be representing these squares, these Mars Pluto squares. I mean, Mars and Pluto. I think of these two as being. I mean, these are very scorpionic, so it's really kind of underhanded. I think Mars declares the war. Pluto is the annihilation. It's the reckoning. So I
How about
think there will
this?
be
Saturn opposite her Venus. Talk about a lot of issues with people coming at her. I mean,
exactly,
I
exactly.
would say
And I
it's
think,
going to
yeah,
be.
go
I
ahead.
mean, the only reason maybe why they're coming at her so hard is because she won.
And I think that could be one element of it. And again, I think regardless of who wins, I think we're going to be encountering. There's going to be stuff that's going to be incited, and I think so. I think if she wins, I think this is where I went back on what I said earlier. Is I think her having that basically a grand sextile of air, a grand trine in air, basically, and a grand trine in fire,
Right.
feeding it. I think this can give her that strength and that perseverance. I think those Earth planets that you so aptly pointed out, that Uranus, Pluto, and Mercury, no,
No, not
Venus,
Mercury, Venus.
Venus, in that placement give her like you said, a really good understanding. And also, I like to think of Virgo as being about resourcefulness and responsibility. It can respond to many things. I think of it as like as a person walking around with a big platter with everything possible that you can have on it. So my sense is that this is a challenge and we'll bring it forth. There's definitely gonna if she does win, there's definitely gonna be a challenge to her winning. I don't have any doubt about that. She's got a
I don't either.
Saturn
I mean, I
Neptune
think that's
trine. I like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
what you said. Saturn, Neptune trine.
I see a Saturn Neptune trine. That
I don't
Saturn is
see that.
trining her
I don't.
Neptune.
No, no. That. Oh, yes, Saturn. You're right. Saturn, Neptune trine. Yeah, that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So that lends a little bit to like her image and how people perceive her. That sun is sextiling her Uranus, so I think that's that could really help give her a little bit of a good boost. The
And
sun is
Pluto.
also, and exactly, I think those three can really add to. Let's put it this way: all of the planet's lights that we receive are because of our sun,
Okay, right. That's true
right?
because that's one of the only, that's the luminary. That our whole solar system is based on the sun. So, but I never think of the sun as when it's visiting my chart as really doing that much.
I think because of on that day, I think because of the persona of the selfhood of what the sun means in that sense. I
Okay.
think there, I think of that can be as, in a sense, a blessing. I mean, it definitely is a blessing. We're going to be seeing. I I don't like stepping into the topics of politics because what happened last time, where so many people were like, not last time, but the time before, were like, oh, where so many people were like, oh, well, there's no way Trump is going to win. I think here in the States, the hard part with most astrologers is we're kind of intelligent, and we like to believe the best of people. And I think it was really challenging to see something happen like that. And I think it was really more about our personal beliefs and what the reality of was that. But he's definitely been someone who is upset the ox cart. He's got his own issues that are happening astrologically. He doesn't have challenges like this with it, but I think we can
Well, we
clearly
can take
see.
a quick look, but he does. But
Sure.
take a look at this one because I've been living with this.
Yes.
You've been hearing me talk about this for years. I've been freaking out about it. I have Uranus squaring my Mars right now too. And I was born with Mars square Uranus. So this is a very accident prone, be careful of your health thing. Fortunately, I've had nothing bad happen because I'm very aware of it. And I think you can avoid having anything bad happen as long as you're aware of it. So even though these are tough aspects for her, one thing that is comforting me for her sake is that these are going on right now. This is long term. This is short term, but this has been going on, right?
Very good point. This and the same with the Uranus to her Mars.
Yep. And Chiron on her moon. This is all happening. It's been happening for the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, kiss your red lines because they're what make you have incredible strength. However,
Yes.
I would not say that if she was getting married or wanting to start her new job, I would never pick this day for her, would you?
No, no, I would not recommend this day for her and probably even this week for her in a
Right.
sense. But again, I mean, I think there are just these very interesting individuals who have a way of, working with the moment. And I think when you have a sextile of fire and air, when you think of those two working together, it's it's a massive wildfire. And I
Yep.
think we're starting to see that. And we saw that almost immediately with the amount of money that was being raised. Um, there's been a big change in the approach to Trump by the Democrats and by her, I think, even specifically, because she has been engaged with him. She has been dealing with this. She has been a vice president. She understands what the position is. And then she gets to weave all of this together, synthesize it in a way, and then step forward in a way that makes a lot of sense. And I think she's very adept at meeting what life is. Being an attorney general, we looked at that for a moment. You and I talked about that. She was the attorney general for the state of California. That is a very major position. She was reelected also for that. She had some very good aspects to that, but also some challenging aspects. But I would put money on her.
Well, here's another thing that I think is interesting. Let's talk about your maverick theory. All right. So she
Yeah,
has that incredibly strong Saturn maverick planet. And on this day, there's not this doesn't count because that's not a planet up here.
right.
She doesn't have a single blue line to her maverick strength. She has Uranus squaring it. So maybe that could mean, because Uranus brings unexpected things, maybe it's going to be that Trump starts getting closer in the polls and he's winning. And then I don't know. I mean, there's something going on here that I don't understand. I don't know how to interpret.
Well, Well, I mean, the challenging part with this is because we have Saturn in Aquarius,
in her natal chart.
Uranus,
Yeah,
right, exactly. And we have Uranus in Pluto, going back and forth between Pluto and Capricorn, squaring it. So, but Uranus and Saturn rule Aquarius. So
right.
it's not going to be the same sort of a da- of a challenging aspect. And this is also, when you think about it, this is her aspect of becoming her identified self. So this can be really, this could be, I mean, because of that Mars Uranus combination that's also going on with it, there could also be something that happens on that day. You know, she could have someone who tries to be a sniper and tries to shoot at her as well. Or that happens at something, maybe at one of the polling booths or something, and she's near it. You know, there might be something that involves that sort of an energy with it. Or it simply might be her having to stand up to the energy of the patriarchy just because of the Saturn, Mars, Pluto. I think of Saturn, Mars, and Pluto as being like the grand triad of patriarchy.
Right. And we got Pluto squaring her and Mars, yeah, and Saturn opposing her Venus. So I think I think what started a lot of this was when Obama won. I think a lot of people were horrified that a black man was in the White House. But now what would make it even more painful for them is that it's not a black man. Now it's a black woman, which is
It's a
like,
black Asian woman.
yeah. And also what's amazing, there is not one single black governor in this country. There aren't a lot of black women who have made it very high. So this is like the men who really don't want women to have power or control of their body. They are going to be not happy, not
And the
happy.
other thing we need to think about too is that this is also during the time in which Pluto is going back, doing its final dip into Capricorn and then coming back into Aquarius. So it's this final gasp, so to speak, of the old kind of corporate ways of doing things, the old way of doing things. And also, so it might be, you know, like a last ditch effort on the Republican Party. I mean, we can already see what I was very I don't know if I want to say happy about last time with Trump with Biden was that that everyone around Trump basically said, no, it's wrong. You are not the winner. You should not be doing that. Things have changed this time. There are more people around him, I think, that will enable him. I mean, and I mean that in the fullest psychologically a morally bereft way possible. They will encourage him to go along with that fallacy. And that, I think, is another aspect of what is going to get played out here. She, in that sense, Kamala is not the only one who's going to be dealing with whatever the fallout of her win
Could
could
be.
be.
Let's look at inauguration day next. Okay. Because it doesn't get much better on this day.
Well, like you said, these outer planets
Long,
aren't
these are
budging. You know,
long moving.
Pluto's not budging.
Yeah, that's
So
the same.
um, her having a relationship with her own Pluto, again, you know, knowing and understanding that transformational power of it. It's, you know, she's going through, she has a mid 64, so she has a mid-degree Pluto in Virgo. So, but Pluto's going into Aquarius, providing a, what is that? Not an inconjunct. It's not a square. It's I know my
Just
mind's
saw a
sorry, I shouldn't
golden
have even gone
aspect,
off.
Michael.
You did
Yeah, Chiron picnic table Venus.
inconjunct Venus. Okay.
You
So
see,
you even
this
see
word,
golden aspects when they're hard aspects. You see them as a golden
yeah,
aspect.
it doesn't matter. That's
Okay.
considered one. Yeah. A
Okay.
parallel or an inconjunct is considered one. Um, this is where Michael and I differ. He's such, I'm calling it a picnic table. I don't call anything by its technical name, where it's Michael knows more about astrology than anybody I know. He is literally a master astrologer. And I do like, you know, as I said, I write and illustrate children's books. I make things into pictures and words. But anyway,
I love how you do that because the truth is when I see that, I immediately think that, but then I've got this really quick, because I have a Uranus Mercury trine, you know, you're the queen of Mercury. So I have this trine that like does this automatic like translation of it, but I love that because it really is that in a way. And it's like, and so it's seeking this way of harmonizing. What I like is looking, and I like it as a picnic table because it's like kind of asking these two parties like Chiron and Venus to come together and say, hey, let's have a little meal. Let's talk about what's going on here. Like, what
right.
are our values? What do we need to heal? What do we need to educate? And also, too, what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with our wounds around 50% of our darn population on the whole planet. The sacred feminine, whenever, you know, if we look at this on the greater level of her representing the feminine, like what you just spoke to, I mean, yeah, and also all the men are going to go like, oh my God, I've got a wife at home. Like that's enough having that woman tell me what to do. I don't want a president who's a woman telling me what to do. I don't want it to be a person of color telling me what to do and a woman. Oh my God, where's our country gone? Sorry for the accident.
You slipped into an accent. Oh my God, that's too funny. So these are all the same as on election day, and
Yes.
Saturn is
Yep.
still opposite Venus, and Uranus is still squaring her Mars. You know, this is, but as I said, it's been going on. It's nothing new. It's what she's got basically right now. Now let's look at her on inauguration day. And so what one reason why I saw predicted Biden would win, it was because he had a aspect of moving into a new house at this time, but I don't see any of that happening. Her moving into a new home. Do you see anything that I'm missing?
Now, Uranus on the Jupiter, that's pretty powerful. I mean, I think that's
Right here?
yeah. I think that's pretty huge. It'll be interesting to see literally how that plays out. It's sextiling Neptune. Neptune is sextiling. It's an out of, you know, it's past it, so it's a separating sextile, but I'd still give it power to that. That Neptune rules the 12th house. Um, but this also, to be honest, what this is also maybe telling me is that there might still be issues about who won the election.
Well, that's what I want people to know about this now, especially if anyone who's
Yeah.
listening who can, I just don't want, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want things to get ugly. I don't want violence. I don't want,
There's no reason for it.
it's not a very evolved, I'm going for elegance. Okay. I want more elegance in our culture and better manners and being civil. And I just think that there's some stuff that we should be prepared for because I think astrology is very accurate. So we should not be surprised if this isn't resolved by inauguration day.
Right. And I
Right?
think that Sun Pluto there is going to be, you know, that's a really powerful combination there at the
Oh,
very
yeah.
earliest degrees of Aquarius. So, that could be shedding light on how our system is really not working properly. It could be an empowering of an powerful, you know, someone trying to overthrow in a sense. You know, there could be that aspect to it. It's
Yeah.
I
And
think
hopefully
it's really up in the air. I mean, I
let's look at Trump, his grid on
sure.
election day. Just curious what you think. So election day, Trump. What I
And look at
picked up.
that. I love it. It switches from hers having the Pluto Mars squares, and he has the Neptune squares to his sun
In his
and
moon.
moon.
Well,
There's the delusion,
right,
right?
and also he was born with Neptune square Mercury, my favorite aspect, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Makes it classic. So he is.
Right.
This is somebody who does not. He sees things the way he sees them on election day. I
Yes,
think this is really
exactly.
interesting. Pluto is opposite his Venus, so this is very interesting to me.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, that
I mean, that to be honest is like that's like the loss of innocence, the loss of values, the loss of it's like to be honest, and I think you and I have talked about this before too. Plus, look, it's also doing it from his Pluto to his Saturn. It's like a rape, right? I mean, that's Persephone, right? This is like lose the loss of innocence.
yeah.
So, I mean, it might be such a crazy landslide of a win for her that he just really can't let it in, and it really because then that Pluto, interesting, look at that, it trines his Neptune.
Poof. And then look at this,
That
Jupiter.
delusion, and then Mercury sextiling is Neptune and trining is Pluto. Yeah, ooh, 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 ooh.
and
Sorry, go
and
ahead. What were you gonna say?
Saturn trining his Mercury, he's going to be extremely verbal that day and larger than life because Jupiter's on his sun within 2 degrees. So usually when Jupiter's on your sun, you're happy, but it makes you big. So big is not always better. I always say Cancer is a Jupiter thing because it wants to grow, grow, grow. So he's he's big this day, big energy and big, very clear thinking this day. I mean, lately I don't understand what's going on with him in terms of his cognitive abilities, but on this day, he's got good, I don't know. It's pretty intense.
Uranus squaring his Mars.
Same as her. They both have it.
Same as her. So
Isn't
that's
that
very, I mean, I
fascinating?
think
They
they're
both
both
have.
in there. I think they're both in for a shock that day.
And
I think
so,
they're
yes,
both in.
but
I
Michael,
think that's the one guarantee we can say for everyone is they're both going to be in shock that day. But I think the whole country and the whole world will be too.
I'm exhausted thinking about this. Oh my God. Yeah, isn't
Oh,
that amazing that they both have this?
wow. And
Their
Uranus
bodies.
sextiling his Saturn. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at that with the wheel. So and then we'll wrap this up. There he is, election day. So he's a maverick too, his Mars and Leo.
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah, he's one of the ones who I picked pretty early on. Before he was president, it actually was very interesting to kind of like watch this evolve. Um,
And look at this on election day, Uranus is at his midheaven. So that's a maverick transit. That means,
Maverick transit, yeah.
excitable, electrical, unexpected. I mean, just very intense, very intense.
I just want to look up really quickly when that Uranus hit his
Midheaven.
midheaven the first time. So 2418.
So you're so good at this technical math stuff. I wouldn't even know. It would take me forever to figure that out.
So whatever was happening around on the 3rd of June this year. When did the sniper hit him?
That was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was just too soon. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever was happening there in June, we'll get kind of a reiteration for it.
It's interesting, right? He'll be larger than life that day. He will dominate the stage. But I will tell you this. I think it was a Robin Williams who had this going over his midheaven when he died, when he killed himself. And I'm not saying Trump's going to kill himself. That's not what I'm saying. But he was unexpectedly in the news because this is where you become famous and you're like big. And there's some big stuff going on. And his health is not great, by the way, on this whole time because there's his body and it's squaring. This is the aspect. I have it right now. Kamala has it, and so does Donald Trump. We all have it. And it makes you very hyped up. I mean, I have had so many people say to me, Leslie, God, you have so much energy. You're just buzzing all the time. And I'm like, part of it's natural and part of it is dealing with this because I was
Part of it's
born
supernatural.
right. So, Michael, it's not easy being me because this is I was born with this. I live with this every day of my life. And now by transit, I've got it again. And I've been telling you for years that I've been worried about it because it's hard living with a body that's like, you know, it's like not
Yeah, and it's
easy.
earth and it's earth and fire, so it's really it's kind of like a volcano, right? It's just it's really oozing, and so sometimes things are getting a little bit set, and then some things because we're talking the two fixed things, but nothing can be fixed when Uranus is involved, right? But I think that's what's giving you the great opportunity to be like such doing great at sports and all your creative pursuits and the ways things come to you and the ways you put things together visually. And um, but it's nice. I think it's good that you do astrology and everything, so you get at least a little bit of that energy outside of you. Trump's using everyone on the planet as his little way of of using this energy. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because like what I keep hearing in my head is heart attack, heart attack, heart attack, heart attack, heart
Well,
attack, heart attack. I don't
and he
know.
also might drop out because of health reasons, because this is, first of all, remember, he has no earth. Okay. When people have no earth, they usually are not in their bodies. They're either really in their bodies or not in their bodies. I know he eats a lot of McDonald's. I think it's because that food grounds him. So I understand why he's doing that. But when you have no earth in your chart, and then you have Uranus here in earth going after your body, um, anything could happen with his body between now and then. So I mean, we should just expect the unexpected. I just find all of this fascinating. And do you find it also, Michael, kind of comforting to know that whatever's happening must be meant to be happening because everything is totally in alignment with what's actually occurring?
It's always and as you probably know, astrology makes so much more sense in hindsight. So when we can prognosticate all we want, but the truth is, after everything's gone down, we'll be able to go like, oh yeah, this is why this showed up and this is why that showed up. But the other thing to speak a little bit just more about him and his body and why I would also say that this probably might be a heart attack a situation for him too. And it'd be interesting to hear if there's been any health issues or scares, is because that Uranus is in that picnic table relationship with the moon
Oh, down here. Okay.
and it requires an adjustment. And like what you said with that Uranus in Earth hitting with his Mars, it's basically like knocking at the door saying, hey, have you been taking care of yourself? Also, if you look at it, where that Uranus is headed is he's getting ready for his Uranus return when he gets to 83, 84. So especially when that Uranus moves into Gemini, I think there's going to be a little bit of a knock at the door, so to speak. So once that Uranus is finished giving that action to his moon and then starts heading for his natal Uranus, which is of course going to be activating his sun and his north node. Hello. Going on, moving on to larger pastures, right? I mean, some of us can only hope, but I have to say, uh, personally, I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of what he's done, but in the sense of what it's given me for my understanding of maverick placements and what one person can do, I think he's brought an incredible awareness to the collective about how many of our systems are an honor system and what we need to do and who we need to elect to actually make laws to keep the structures in place to keep us as Americans, as humans on this planet, taken care of in a healthy manner. And he's really kind of helped poke at all the holes and shown us, what someone can do when they aren't operating out of a place of a higher good. And so, in that sense, I think with Kamala's Saturn getting activated, I kind of like that. It's like a divining rod of like saying, no, this is the way it needs to be. We can't have crazy running the show anymore. That does not support anyone.
I have a question for you about this. I have Mercury in Cancer, and I
Mm-hmm.
have always said people who have that, they hate fighting. Okay.
Mm.
So the only way I can explain why he has, he's always making nicknames for people and he can be verbally belligerent. There's no doubt about it. Is it just because it's squaring Neptune that it doesn't act like a normal Mercury in Cancer? Because I would never, I don't use words that way, the way he does.
I would say there's a few things I would point out to his chart and then also his life. First and foremost, he was raised by a psychotic psychopath. I mean, his father was a really quite an amazing piece of work. So he had to be strong in relationship to that. Also, we have a moon in Gemini on the
No, no, no,
South
no,
Node.
no, moon in Sagittarius.
I'm sorry, moon in Sagittarius, thank you. Conjunct his South Node, trining that Mars. So he's really good at sparring, right? That Mars sextiles his sun and his north node. It gives him this ability. And then that Venus and Saturn together in Cancer are, I think that's a little bit more of that protective part. And so I think those things in his chart really kind of feed into his ability to kind of step out of it. You know, he probably, to be honest, I think him being a bit overweight like he is probably an example of him trying to protect himself,
Mhm.
you know, emotionally because of that, because I think he is really sensitive, but I don't think he's been afforded the ability to have that sensitivity like you have.
Well, I think it could also, because his moon is in Sagittarius, that's not exactly an emotionally calm, gentle person. But in his head, he probably feels like he's a great father and a great, kind man. And I think
Clearly.
when he
Yeah.
loves you, I mean, I know quite a lot of people who like him, and they said he used to be great fun and a good guy. I mean, not a good, not, no one said he was a good guy. They said he was fun. They said he was, a likable guy. Anyone who's got their Jupiter trining their sun,
Yes.
people tend to like them. And a lot of people who really, really, really like him, it's because they are hanging out with him on this blue line. They feel like he's their guy. He's their lucky charm. And they put their hope
Until
on
he's
him.
not, right?
Well, for those people, out of compassion for people who like him, it's
Right.
because they have seen this and they like this and they believe in this and they want to stay on this with him. And I think that's why
Yes.
he has so many loyal followers. But
Yeah.
as astrologers, remember, we're looking at the deep inner workings of people. And by the way, this particular aspect, Mercury square Neptune, his father had the same thing. 90% sure. But I told you Robert Kennedy Jr. also has it. Ron DeSantis has it. Jeffrey Epstein has it. There are a lot of people who have this that are very charismatic and quite big in the world. And it's because they paint a picture of what people want to hear. And the problem is there's not enough in this chart to actually get stuff done, in terms of at a deeper, more spiritual level.
Right. And then I
So,
think in that regard of that Mercury Neptune, we can see that, yeah, when people are in the inside with him, when they're in the inner circle, and also with that Mars on the ascendant, he also has Regulus, the fixed star there. I mean, he really has this kind of kingly energy. And I would imagine that when
yes,
you are in the inner circle, that you know that you're kind of in, but like what we saw happen with Michael Cohen, like when he no longer has any use for you, you will be banished to the hinterlands, humiliated, decimated, and denigrated. Because, and I think that's where that Mars, and again, look, we talked about that above the horizon aspect when we talked about what's going to be happening on inauguration day for Kamala. He's got that Mars above his ascendant, so he's not even aware of his belligerent nature. I have Mars on my midheaven. I have to say that Mars on an angle, we aren't. You have Mars on your midheaven. I
that's
don't
true. I
think
have
we're aware. I don't think we're aware. Lily has Mars on her midheaven
his
too.
dog is his dog's chart is very much like mine.
There's
Oh,
the
there
dog.
she is. Oh my God, wait a minute. Show that again. That is so stinking cute. They're in love. That's Robert and Lily, a poodle and a Weimaraner.
Right.
Love them
Um,
together. Oh my
they're so
God.
sweet, taking a nap. Isn't that adorable?
I love them.
Um, but that Mars is not like one of my sayings is we don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't Pisces. Whoever has a planet on their angle, you're not aware of that planet. I wasn't aware of that. I have this very pushy nature because I just figure, oh, well, people will tell me no. But the truth is, some people don't like to say no. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier with Trump with that Mercury in in Cancer. You know, that part of him is like not going to want to be able to say no. So he's built up other things so he doesn't really probably have to say no. Or I would think another aspect with that Mercury in Cancer is the ability to ask for things, right? I think that would be something that's really important. I don't think he asks. I
Well, it's
think with that
also
Mars,
intercepted. It's
yeah.
intercepted. So he doesn't really have access to all of this, in my opinion. So listen, Michael, we've gone over an hour because I could literally talk to you
Wow.
for 10 hours. We're just getting
It's so
warmed up.
easy.
We're just getting warmed up. But anyway, I feel better talking to you about this. I hope that it's been useful for anyone who's listening to this. So we'll hopefully do something like this again soon. It was a total pleasure, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Can I share where people can get a hold of me?
Yeah, of course. I forgot to say that. And also, he's a
That's
great
okay.
astrologer, so please call him or email him. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes when you don't want to have to wait for Miss Leslie, or you want to get a different viewpoint, which Leslie's just so worth it. I think does such great work. But if people want to look for me or want to find out a little bit more about the Maverick work, they can visit me at Core Michael, CORE Michael.com. Thank you so much, Leslie. Such a treat to be here with you.
So
Many
thank you.
blessings to all of us during this time. May we remember who we are. May we find ways to connect and find empathy and not go into the spaces of division. And because those Saturn, those squares, those Pluto Mars squares are really significant. And I think, you know, it's something that really deserves attention on our part.
Right. So hopefully we've prepared people for, because we're just cosmic meteorologists. We're like diagnostic people. It's like when I look at charts, I'm looking at a car or a plate of food and I'm describing it. And some plates of food I don't like. I don't want to eat it. And others I do, or some cars I like and some I don't. So astrologically, I try to be neutral and I try to have compassion. People are this Trump chart is, it's perfect description of him. So he is what he is. And that he's doing a perfect job of being himself. All right. Well, thank you, Michael, so much. And so your website is, say it again, Core.
CoreMichael.com.
Okay, perfect. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye, Michael.
Bye, Leslie.
Bye.